Leadership at the University of Arizona is taking steps to address free speech on campus after landing in the national spotlight. This all stems from a situation last month when 3 students protested Border Patrol agents who were giving a presentation in a classroom. The 3 were later cited by U of A police. Next week, the university will host a campus conversation about the issue. This week, we heard from U of A professor of law Jane Bambauer about the role of free speech at public universities. College campuses seem to get this reputation as these symbols of free expression. What is it about college campuses that just create that environment?
Well, universities for a long time, 50, 60 years now, have been seen as the embodiment of the mission of the First Amendment, where we are supposed to come together for sometimes heated debate, but have tolerance for each other's viewpoints, even if we don't agree, and the ability also to hear each other and possibly change our minds. So that sort of the metaphor, the marketplace of ideas, is especially apt for the colleges and universities where the main trade is in ideas.
There are colleges across the nation that are having these conversations about free speech. Where do you suppose Arizona fits into it? I mean, how is free speech valued at the University of Arizona?
Free speech has been valued quite highly at the University of Arizona, and the fact that we're sort of embroiled in a controversy right now does not necessarily mean that the college has, prior to the controversy, done anything that would sacrifice First Amendment values. And in fact, FIRE, which is the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, has rated the University of Arizona's speech on campus policies with a green light, the best, highest standards that it has. So the university has done an admirable job of making sure that people feel comfortable speaking, so long as it doesn't, cross the line into some sort of prohibited conduct.
Who's entitled to free speech? I mean, you have a student who is not comfortable with someone's presence and then vocalizes their concern, but then you also have someone who's here on campus invited to speak. So how do those two clash, and who's really at fault there?
Yeah, so a lot of campus problems, including the controversy we're in here, involve speech versus speech tensions, where two groups see the other's behavior as diminishing their ability to engage in an expressive activity. And one idea that sort of gets this across is that courts are often worried about providing an outlet for the heckler's veto, as it's called. And the idea is, if somebody wants to come to campus to speak, but a group of demonstrators prevent them from being able to be heard, then it's the hecklers that end up winning. And so it is speech that's getting in the way of other speech. And that's, in a nutshell, what makes these issues so difficult to manage.
So who draws the boundary lines, and then at what point does it become harassment versus free speech?
The Supreme Court and the circuit courts have defined, when they get called on to answer questions like this, they have, especially recently, defined things like harassment quite strictly, so that there needs to be an imminent threat, an objectively verifiable and imminent threat, and so it's usually a pretty hard standard for regulators, whether it's university administrators or whatnot, to meet, and that's doubly true if the criminal process is involved. That said, there are times that demonstrators are doing things that are not just their message, but are also conduct that's prohibited, like trespass, for example, or destroying property. And so that's what makes this a little hard, because speakers can't speak without some actual physical effect on the world. and so the sort of overlap between speech and conduct is difficult to manage.
Here at the University of Arizona, we'll be hearing a number of campus conversations to address issues like this one. In your line of work, any belief that this is headed in the right direction? Or, I mean, how significant will these campus conversations be in the grand scheme of things?
Well, campus conversations are something that other university administrations across the country have tried, and sometimes with some success. There's at least a little bit of evidence from surveys that, two student groups going in that feel quite dissatisfied with the university come out of the conversation feeling heard and understood, even if they don't get everything that they want. So it can be a recipe for success. President Robbins is facing a somewhat unprecedented set of circumstances, though, because there has been this criminal charge brought against 3 students, and that just really sort of amps up the consequences, or amps up the stakes. He's going to be walking a thinner tightrope than a lot of other university presidents.